For a trucker with 20 years on the road, you learn to trust two things: your engine and the endless ribbon of asphalt in front of you. My Kenworth was purring like a kitten, and Route 89 was a straight shot, a black line cutting through the sleeping heart of Utah. But after I passed the Cup of Joe Dinah for the fourth time in 20 minutes on that perfectly straight highway, I started to think the road was broken. This was it. My last run. 45 years old, with a paid-off mortgage back in Flagstaff and a wife, Linda, who was probably already picking out paint swatches for the spare bedroom I was finally going to turn into a workshop. 2 decades of my life, measured in mile markers and lukewarm coffee, all coming to an end with this final haul of machine parts to Salt Lake City. I was so close to the finish line I could taste the lukewarm beer and frozen pizza Linda and I would celebrate with. It was a good feeling. A feeling of solid, predictable reality. The night was clear and moonless, the kind of deep, velvety black you only get in the middle of nowhere. The stars looked like holes punched in a sheet of dark metal. My dash lights cast a comforting green glow over the cab, the familiar smell of worn leather and stale coffee my constant companion. I had the radio on low, some classic rock station crackling in and out of existence, the DJ's voice a distant ghost from a town I'd left 100 miles behind. It was peaceful. I saw the Dinah the first time around 2 a.m. It was the only splash of light in a 100-mile stretch of nothing. A low, flat building with big plate glass windows glowing like a lonely fish tank in the abyss. A vintage-looking sign on a tall pole hummed with neon, spelling out Cup of Joe in cheerful, looping red letters. There were a couple of pickups and a sedan in the gravel lot. Through the window, I saw a lone figure behind the counter, a woman in a white uniform. I registered it all with the detached interest of a man who's seen 1,000 identical Dinahs on 1,000 identical nights. I checked my mirrors, took a sip of my thermos, and kept driving. The red glow of the sign vanished behind me, swallowed by the darkness. 5 minutes later, I saw it again. My first thought was simple confusion. Huh, I grunted, leaning forward against the wheel. Déjà vu. It looked exactly the same. The same low building, the same gravel lot, the same neon sign Cup of Joe. I squinted. Were those the same trucks? A silver Ford F-150 with a dent in the passenger side door and an old beat-to-hell Chevy. Looked like it. I shook my head. Must be a chain, I thought. Some new franchise popping up in the middle of nowhere. Weird placement, but corporations do weird things. I glanced at my GPS. The little blue arrow representing my rig was tracking perfectly along the straight line of US 89. No turns, no roundabouts, no weird detours. Just a straight shot. Still, the hair on my arms prickled. I drove on, pushing the thought from my mind. The radio crackled, the classic rock song dissolving into a wall of static. I fiddled with a knob, trying to find another station, but all I got was white noise. Not unusual out here. Cell service was a joke, so radio signals getting patchy was just part of the deal. Then, up ahead, a familiar red glow began to bleed into the darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs. No fucking way. It was the diner again. Cup of Joe. I slowed the rig down, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. This wasn't a chain. This was the same place. The silver F-150, the rusty Chevy. But wait. This time, there was another car. A dark blue sedan I hadn't seen before, parked near the door. My eyes shot to the window. The same woman was there, wiping down the counter. But as I drew parallel, she stopped. She looked up right at me as if she'd been waiting. A slow, deliberate smile spread across her face. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was knowing. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. This wasn't possible. I hadn't turned around. I hadn't taken an exit. Route 89 is a straight, unforgiving line in this part of the country. You can see for miles. There are no tricks, no hidden loops. My mind, the pragmatic, no-nonsense mind of a man who deals in logistics and physics, was scrambling for an explanation. A prank. Some elaborate setup with mirrors. It was insane. I stomped on the accelerator, my engine roaring in protest. I needed to put distance between me and that place. I watched it in my rearview mirror until the red neon was a pinprick, and then nothing. The static on the radio intensified, and through the hiss, I thought I heard something else. A whisper. A woman's voice, distorted and stretched, tangled up in the white noise. It was too faint to make out the words, but the sound of it made my skin crawl. I turned the radio off completely. Silence. Just the hum of my tires on the asphalt and the frantic thumping of my own heart. I focused on the road, my eyes glued to the white lines rushing toward me under the glare of my headlights. Drive. Just drive. This is your last run, Frank. Don't lose your mind 50 miles from the finish line. I drove for what felt like an eternity, but my dashboard clock told me it had only been 4 minutes. My GPS screen flickered. The blue arrow that was me, my solid little anchor in the digital world, began to stutter and jump. Then, the whole map dissolved, replaced by a single pulsing dot in a sea of gray. Acquiring satellite, the screen read. It never acquired it. And then I saw the red glow. Yen. This time, I felt a scream building in my throat, a raw, primal sound of pure terror. I slammed on the brakes, the Kenworth groaning as it slowed, the trailer fishtailing slightly. I pulled over onto the shoulder, the engine idling like a restless beast. About 100 yards ahead, there it was. But it was different again. The sign was flickering violently. The looping red letters now spelled out Cup of O. The J was dead. In the parking lot, only one vehicle remained, the dark blue sedan. The pickups were gone. I looked to the window, my breath catching in my chest. The woman was standing there, her face pressed close to the glass. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her expression was one of intense, desperate longing. She raised a hand and beckoned to me. A slow, deliberate curl of her fingers thought, "Come here." The whispers started again, but this time they weren't on the radio. They were inside the cab with me. They seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, slithering out of the air vents, emanating from the cracked leather of the passenger seat. So close, Frank, you're so close. Who's there? I yelled, my voice sounding thin and pathetic in the confines of the cab. I fumbled for my phone. No service. Of course. I tried the CB radio, my hand shaking as I keyed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Big Rig Frank. Anyone got a copy on 89 northbound? Static. Thick and suffocating. Then, through the hiss, that same woman's voice, clearer this time, coiling around me like smoke. No one can hear you, Frankie. Frankie. Only Linder called me Frankie. A wave of Norser washed over me. I was trapped. I wasn't on a road anymore. I was on a treadmill to hell, and this diner was the only landmark. My entire world, a world built on solid roads, reliable engines, and the unwavering laws of physics, had crumbled in the space of 20 minutes. The skepticism I'd worn like armor for 45 years was gone, stripped away by the impossible. What was left was just raw, naked fear. I had a choice. It was a simple and terrible one. I could put the truck in gear and keep driving, keep passing this place over and over again until I ran out of fuel or my mind finally snapped for good. Or I could turn off the engine, leave the relative safety of my cab, and walk into that uncanny, glowing building. I could face the woman who seemed to be at the center of it all. For a long moment, I just sat there, listening to the whispers and the frantic beating of my own heart. I thought of Linder. I thought of my workshop, of the fishing trips I'd promised myself, of the simple, beautiful real life that was waiting for me. Was this a test? A toll booth on the highway to my retirement? The woman in the window beckoned again, her eyes wide, her expression unreadable. Was it a plea? A threat? An invitation? I couldn't tell, but I knew I couldn't keep driving. The loop was breaking me. Maybe the only way out was through. Okay, I whispered to the empty cab. Okay. With a deep, shuddering breath, I killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. I opened the door, and the cold desert air hit me like a slap in the face. It felt real. The gravel crunched under my boots. That felt real, too. I held onto those small sensations as I walked toward the diner, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. The blue sedan was unlocked. On the passenger seat was a thick layer of dust, as if it had been sitting there for years. The air around the diner was strangely still. No wind, no crickets, nothing. The only sound was the electric hum of the damaged sign. Cup of O. As I got closer, I could smell it. The scent of frying bacon and fresh coffee, thick and cloying and somehow wrong. It was the memory of a smell, not the smell itself. I pushed the glass door open. A little bell chimed, a cheerful, anachronistic sound in the oppressive silence. The inside was exactly what you'd expect. Red vinyl booths, a long formica countertop with chrome-legged stools, checkered tile on the floor. It was clean. Impossibly clean. There wasn't a speck of dust, not a single stray crumb. Behind the counter stood the woman. Up close, she was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. She looked to be in her mid-30s, with dark hair tied back in a neat ponytail and eyes the color of faded denim. She wore a crisp, white waitress uniform. She was wiping a coffee mug with a cloth, her movements slow and precise. She didn't look up when I came in. "Took you long enough," she said, her voice calm and even. It was the same voice from the radio, from the whispers, but without the distortion. I stood just inside the door, my heart a trapped bird against my ribs. "Where am I?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She finally looked at me, and her eyes held a profound sadness. "You're on Route 89, Frank. You're almost home." "I've passed this place 4 times," I said, my voice rising with a hysterical edge. "The sign, the cars in the lot, they keep changing. The road it just loops back here." She placed the mug down on the counter with a soft click. "The road does what it has to. Sometimes things get stuck. Like a skipping record." She gestured to a booth by the window. "Sit down. I'll get you some coffee." I didn't move. "Who are you?" A faint smile touched her lips. "You can call me Sarah. I'm the waitress." "What is this place?" "It's a rest stop. A place for travelers who get a little lost." Her gaze was intense, and I had the feeling she wasn't just talking about the highway. I finally walked over and slid into the booth she'd indicated. The vinyl was cold against my skin. Outside, my truck was a dark, silent shape on the shoulder of a road that didn't make sense. Sarah came over with a thick white mug and a steaming pot of coffee. She poured the dark liquid smelling rich and real. "You're on your last run, aren't you?" she asked, setting the pot down. "Headed home for good." To Linder. The blood drained from my face. "How do you know that? How do you know my name?" "I know a lot of things about the people who stop here," she said softly. She slid into the booth opposite me, her hands folded on the tabletop. "This place, it's a seam. A glitch, like you called it. A place where the road gets thin. People who are at a crossroads, people with a heavy weight on them, sometimes they snag on it." "A crossroads," I scoffed, trying to reclaim some of my old skepticism. "I'm not at a crossroads. I've made my choice. I'm retiring. I'm going home." "Are you?" Sarah's denim blue eyes seemed to look right through me. 20 years, Frank. 20 years of sleeping in the cab, of greasy food and endless miles, of missing birthdays, anniversaries, of conversations with your wife that start with "I'm sorry I missed your call." That's a heavy weight to carry. You've given your whole life to that road. The road isn't sure it wants to let you go. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was right. Every missed school play, every lonely holiday, every rushed phone call, it was all there. The ghost weight in the passenger seat I'd been carrying for years. The price of the life I'd chosen. "So what? The highway is sentient?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's decided to hold me hostage?" "Not exactly," she said, her expression patient. "It's more like an echo, a loop of all the choices you've made, all the miles you've driven. You're caught in your own wake, Frank. Every time you pass by, you're seeing a different possibility, a different version of the stop. The dyna changes because you're changing. You're fighting the loop, so the loop fights back." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "The whispers, was that you?" She nodded. "I was trying to guide you." Shouting into the static. Most drivers just keep going. They run out of gas, their engines die, and they just fade. They become part of the echo. But you stopped. You got out of the truck. You chose to face it. "Face what?" I demanded. "You, this crazy Dinah." "Yourself," she replied simply. "The choice you have to make." I looked down at the coffee. It was still steaming, but it hadn't cooled at all. "What choice?" "The same one every driver who stops here has to make," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You can go back out there, get in your truck and keep driving the loop. Maybe you'll break it. Maybe you'll run out of gas and become another whisper in the static. Or you can stay." "Stay here?" I looked around the empty, sterile diner. "Forever?" "There's coffee," she said with that sad, faint smile. "And conversation. It's quiet. It's peaceful. There's no more road. No more missed calls. No more time. You just rest." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a rest stop. It was an ending. A terminal. The blue sedan outside the layer of dust was its driver, sitting in one of these booths, invisible to me. Had he chosen to rest? "You're a ghost," I breathed. "This is a ghost story." Sarah laughed, a soft, melancholy sound. "Everyone wants to put a label on it. Ghost, demon, glitch in the matrix. I'm just Sarah. And this is just the Dinah. I got caught in the loop a long, long time ago. My car is still out there. Now I just serve the coffee." Her eyes pleaded with me. It's not so bad, Frank. The loneliness fades. You forget what you were driving toward. Forget Linder. Forget the workshop and the fishing trips. Forget the feeling of my own front porch under my feet. Never. No, I said, my voice firm. I pushed the untouched coffee mug away from me. No, I'm going home. Sarah's smile finally faded completely. A profound sadness filled her face. The road is hungry, Frank. It doesn't like to be denied. I've given it 20 years, I said, standing up. The chair scraped loudly against the tile. It's taken enough. I'm finishing this run. I turned and walked to the door, my back to her. I could feel her eyes on me. I expected her to say something, to try and stop me, but there was only silence. I put my hand on the door. Frank, her voice called out, soft and strained. If you break the loop, don't look back. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see in your mirrors, don't look back. I didn't answer. I pushed the door open, the little bell chiming my departure, and stepped back out into the cold, silent night. I walked to my truck, my steps feeling more solid, more determined. I climbed into the cab and fired up the engine. The familiar roar was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I didn't look at the diner. I put the truck in gear, pulled off the shoulder, and got back on the asphalt. I drove, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. After a few moments, the static on the radio returned, but this time it was different. It was filled with voices, dozens of them, all whispering at once. Men and women, young and old, all tangled together. He's leaving, not fair one of us. Then Sarah's voice rose above the others, no longer a gentle guide, but a desperate, terrifying shriek that tore through the cab. Frankie, don't leave me here. My hands tightened on the wheel. My knuckles were bone white. I wanted to look in the mirror. The urge was a physical thing, a hook in my gut pulling my head around. I saw the red glow of the diner in my peripheral vision. It was brighter now, angrier. I loved you, Frank. Linder's voice screamed from the static. A perfect imitation. My heart shattered. It was a trick. It had to be a trick. Then came another sound. A sound that wasn't from the radio. A heavy rhythmic thump 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 from the back of my trailer, as if something massive was trying to get in. My eyes darted to the passenger side mirror. In the reflection, I saw the diner. Its windows were no longer a warm, welcoming yellow, but a furious, pulsing red. And there were figures standing in the parking lot. Dozens of them. Vague, shimmering shapes in the darkness, all watching me go. I remembered Sarah's warning. Don't look back. I focused on the white lines. I floored it. The Kenworth surged forward, the engine screaming. The thumping on the trailer got faster, more frantic. The whispers turned to shrieks of rage. The whole cab seemed to vibrate with their fury. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The radio was silent. The thumping was gone. The air in the cab felt clean again. I chanced a look in the rearview mirror. There was nothing. No red glow. No diner. Just the long, dark, empty stretch of US 89 behind me. Ahead, I saw the first faint signs of dawn painting the eastern sky. A few miles later, my GPS flickered back to life, showing my little blue arrow right where it should be, just 20 miles outside of Salt Lake City. My phone buzzed in its cradle. A text from Linder. Morning, sleepyhead. Almost done. Can't wait to have you home for good. Love you. So. Tears streamed down my face. I pulled over, my body shaking with a relief so profound it felt like pain. I was out. I was free. I made the delivery in Salt Lake in a daze. I signed the papers, handed over the keys, and took a cab to the airport. I didn't even clean out my rig. I just left it. I left 20 years of my life sitting in that loading bay. I'm home now. It's been a week. Linder is happy. The workshop is coming along. It's everything I ever wanted. But I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see that lonely stretch of road. I see a flickering neon sign. And sometimes, when the house is quiet, I can still hear whispers in the static of the television or the hum of the refrigerator. I don't know what was real that night. A dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. Or did I really find a seam in the fabric of the world on Route 89, a place where the road claims its own? I think about Sarah pouring coffee for eternity. I think about the other figures in the lot. How many drivers never made it through? Sometimes I look at Linder and a cold fear grips me. Is she real? Is any of this? Did I really break the loop? Or is this just another, more pleasant version of the Dinah? And is my coffee getting cold on the counter while I dream of a life I can no longer reach? I don't know the answer. All I know is I'm never driving at night again. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.